Hey everybody, if I look disheveled, it's because it was election day and I was racing around, was very late for my client because there were big lines at voting. I've never seen it this busy. And while, the big turnout is awesome, the result is potential gridlock. So we might be doing this all over again within the year because it takes a miracle for the Bloc Québécois to prop up a federalist government. So it's yay. The theme of 2025 is instability and uncertainty. That's awesome for everyone's, like, we don't have 401ks up here, we have RSPs, but you know what I mean. But the topic today is a different aesthetic or a different sense of what's beautiful versus a woke agenda. And I want to preface in games. And I want to preface by saying, even if a game is woke, free speech principles mean let the market decide. If a game is anti-woke, based on free speech principles, let the market decide. For one to be viable, both have to be viable. And the witch hunts, I know that's a ruined term, in gaming right now are not helping anything. AAA companies are not going to disappear just because hardcore gamers go on the warpath and try to sink Ubisoft. It's just not. At this point, AAA companies could release remakes like Oblivion for a decade and still make money because there's so many casual gamers that come in and they're not aware of this stuff. They're not connected to it. So, I said I thought the Hogwarts Legacy boycott was short-sighted. I'm saying the same thing about this Ubisoft thing. And the idea that Assassin's Creed Shadows is an especially woke game, it's one of these things where the game is so big and there's so much going on that, yeah, if you want to cut a bunch of things together, like the fact they include references to the precursor to Bishonen in Japanese culture, which is basically a man who is like a beautiful boy kind of thing. That's a gender identity that does not exist in the West, and it is a gender identity. It's not just a trope. And if you want to call that woke, well, okay, a lot of things are woke. Like Castlevania's woke because Alucard's a bishi, right? The accusation of woke alone does not mean a game has no merit, but it is wrong with Assassin's Creed Shadows just because you can stab, like assassinate unarmed women just because they're carrying a lantern. And if Tropes versus Women was still around in day, that would be in a clip montage there. The minute you do that, you take a risk. It was accurate to the way wars were fought in Japan at the time. It was brutal and bloody and zero sum. And if somebody took over your castle, which were military forts back then as well, they didn't spare anybody. The whole theme of the game is that period of history was too complex for the creed to really hold up, the traditional Assassin's Creed about, staying your blade from the innocent. And I think that there's been a lack of nuanced discussion about what the game does because it's all, is it woke? And I do think especially the motivations of Yasuke and Naoe, never mind that the game is so you are able to customize it to have the experience that you want. If you want to play it like an RPG with a bunch of dialogue options and like romance options, you can. If you want to play it in, I forget, canon mode or something. Anyway, you can play it in the original Japanese and Portuguese, or you can play it in English. There's a lot of choice. And there's a lot of interesting emergent storytelling that I'm finding because the characters of Naoe and Yasuke are so meticulously crafted. It's inspiring me to actually make choices that are about, well, this is what I think this character would do, not this is what I like. And I mean the precursor to the Bishi guy, he's so pretty, but would Yasuke go for him? Not in my mind. To me, Yasuke is he's not going to take those liberties. He's too honor bound. So I didn't choose that option, even though I'm like, okay, this boy pretty. But to me, that's the power of choice. That's not the game telling me I should do it. That's the game just giving me the option. And I felt validated that we're going to do what Yasuke wants, not what I would want. And the fact that he comes to Japan via the Portuguese as a slave did inform my sort of protective instinct towards him. I am much more protective of him than Naoe, which, I mean, she's fucked in the head. She needs a big leash. Like, no, you are very damaged, girl, and you are like violence psycho. And the whole interplay between them is he's sort of a leavening agent on her, the kind of saving her from her worst instincts. And she's a come on, don't do everything by the rules. Be a human. And the whole slavery angle in the game is very nuanced. It is not slavery bad, slavery bad. Obviously, the Assassin's Creed franchise has always been neither the Assassins nor Templars back slavery. We're going back to Assassin's Creed. I don't remember if it was 4 or 3, but they made it abundantly clear that neither side was good with slavery. It happened under the Templars, but they were not cool with it because they thought that it ultimately led to destabilization, and they're about order, not subjugation. But him starting as a slave is what they use to explain his unbending loyalty to Oba Nobunaga, who is, I mean, he was a brutal historical figure, very, very complex, and they maintain those complexities. And the fact that they convinced me, I mean, the whole, he's not a samurai. In the game, he's a samurai for about 5 seconds. And he's basically, first of all, he has to be so good with a sword that they give it to him. He literally didn't die. And so he got to be a samurai. But it was very clear that Nobunaga, Oda Nobunaga, was treating him like a mascot more than a, equal to, Japan-born, indigenous samurai. But it's like Yasuke kind of knows, but he doesn't care, or that's not his biggest driver, because at least this guy's giving him a shot, which is a merit-based system. And therefore, another point against the woke column. And then it comes down to people don't find Naoe attractive enough. And that was the original thing I really want to talk about, because there's been a lot of speculation about the motivations of the team that developed this game. And, you know, when I used to be a real games journalist, I actually got an opportunity to talk to some of the Ubisoft artists about it. And I know that they don't make deliberately ugly characters. I know they don't. They make a character that to them is beautiful, but to them, interesting looking is beautiful. They just have a different idea of what constitutes beauty. And there was also the fact that she had to be small to telegraph that you are not gonna win a head-on fight. Like, the reason, you know, Taki and Ivy Valentine in Soul Calibur are more well-endowed is because they are tankier characters. Especially Ivy plays a lot like Yasuke. You gotta get momentum going. But you feel the weight in him, especially with the Kanabo. I mean, oh my god. It's so violent. And it's so bloody, but you just get going and whoomp, whoomp, whoomp. And it's this very kind of zen, slow combos, and it feels glorious. Like, it really does. And is the game hard per se? No, but again, I don't think it's a game intended to be hard. I think it's a game focused on emergent storytelling. But the size difference, she has to be teeny, because you can't take on 3 heavies as her. You know, you got to run away. You got to be tactical. And if you don't want that experience, that's fine for most part of the game. Most of the missions, except for like key campaign missions, you can play with either of them. And it is just a freedom of choice thing, which again, the game isn't saying don't go murder hobo. It's letting you do it. It's not saying this bad and you're bad for liking it, which again is another argument against it being woke. Because I realized it didn't define woke. And that's because other than it being the Black consciousness movement of like the 1930s to the 1950s, I admit I don't really know what woke is. Woke seems to be an accusation of a intent, which is only inferred. And I just don't see an intent to lecture the audience, the player. Sorry, not audience, player. It's very different. I don't see an intent in this game to lecture people and go, this morality good, this morality bad. What I see is a very nuanced back and forth, because I mean, now he's the one, it's like, stab him in the face, revenge, right? Yasuke's more noble, more restrained. I don't get the sense he enjoys the violence. It's just, this is his job. And again, I do think that the little woman being unhinged and scary violent is again another anti-woke, not woke point, because it's not of the yes queen slay variety. It's she's scary and not okay, and left to her own devices, she needs somebody pulling her back. And I like that the fact that she was traumatized is not an excuse for her violence. There are times that the game very much makes it clear that Yasuke does not agree with her violent inclinations, and the fact that it's a guy going, hey, whoa, let's think about this. I mean, that, again, there are so many things about this game that just tropes versus women fodder, you know? And the neutrality of the whole thing, it really is a question of what you put into it is really what you get out. It's not like, even Stellar Blade really had more of a moralizing at the ending about humanity and what it means to be human and come together and merge and join. And I mean, that ending felt kind of preachy to me. I really did feel like, I know I made the ending, which was the wrong one. It's like, no, fuck you, Adam. We're taking over the skies. Me and what's her name, right? Like, even the other lady. But it let me do it. So, like, it's not a criticism. I was actually surprised at how subversive the ending of Stellar Blade was. But again, I mean, the symbol of Niaue is this ocarina that was her father's, and it got broken and it got stitched back by the gold method. And the whole metaphor is like, no, she was broken and is being put back together. And the cracks, the obvious damage sealed with gold in Japanese tradition makes you more beautiful, not less. It's not a flaw. It's now part of the beauty of the repaired item. And to me, the fact that she does have scars, the fact that she's not, I mean, it's a game set in feudal Japan. Women with boobs my size just didn't exist. And there's attractive women. I mean, Oda Nobunaga's sister is very classically attractive. There are attractive women in the game. Everybody focuses on lady, was it Neve? But anyway, the one with the eyebrows that are removed. But that was a look. Same with the black teeth that they show in like Blue Eye Samurai. That's not woke. That's just history. It's including a historical point. And it just made the two characters, who are otherwise very similar in a lot of ways, look distinctively different. So, okay, that's the calligraphy lady. That's the give Yasuki flashbacks about being a samurai lady. There's no agenda there other than to make it easier for people to tell the characters apart. So, again, women are very scheming in this game. Women are brutal. Women are dishonest. Yes, they go out of their way to avoid black stereotypes of the Yasuke, but he is still a black man defined by violence. And this is one of my favorite bits of emergent storytelling in this game, that it's very easy to become wanted as Yasuke. And I'm like, damn, wanted by 5-0. I'm just here doing my job. You show up, you're going to arrest and it becomes this whole game to me of, all right, fine, I'll leave, and you're wanted for the season, but you can switch characters, and then have Niaue come in and want my friend, assassinate, and it is fun. Like, I know I'm doing kind of a, like, Punisher cop killer thing, which is definitely not woke. Well, maybe it is, depending on what what dogmatic woke angle you're doing. All violence are bad. Don't use violence to solve crimes, or, ACAB. But is it, what I would do in real life? Absolutely not. But I always love a game that gives me a choice, but doesn't restrict it with heavy-handed moralizing like in The Last of Us 2. Like, I will completely concede that The Last of Us 2 was I understand the complaints that game was woke. Alan Wake, I don't. Assassin's Creed Shadows, I just don't. Like, there is so much in that could be considered problematic in those camps. People, because there's so much player freedom, you're going to see what you want to see. The experience you have is highly contingent on the choices you make. You can avoid killing those women with the lanterns that are unarmed and are only level 1. And they don't level with you, so if you're level 39, they're still level 1. They're orange in your eagle vision, not red. You can sneak around them. It's hard, but you can do it. But then every so often you mess up, and then, okay, you do have to catch them because they're going to alert them. And it just shows sort of you gotta do what you gotta do because everything's falling apart in Japan at that moment. It's a complete power vacuum at that point in history. And that, again, is not an idealized depiction, right? It's actually going look, all of these left, the boxes, the stereotypes that the left and the right put on Asian people. This game really defies them. They are neither, sage mystics, which, ironically, the anti-woke crusaders against their game are arguing, oh, you can smash up temples, this offends the Japanese. Sorry, aren't you guys supposed to be the ones arguing favor of the right to offend? Oops. So, I don't agree that I understand why the game put that patch in so that there's less damage in the temples as sort of a cover your ass move. Whenever I get attacked by a Ronin in a temple and I have to fight, I feel that, oh shit, I just profaned sacred ground. But the entirety of Japan is getting profaned in that moment. And I find it odd that when you're murdering people, we're worried about buildings. And I say this as a person of faith. I understand that you don't want your holy buildings desecrated. But the idea that people are going to do it in a video game, and so they're going to want to climb a torii gate in real life, or they're going to want to climb a pagoda in real life, that just doesn't wash for me. Imitatable behavior standards are for children, not adults. And this is definitely, a mature rated game, or at least teen. Jesus. No, people just don't do that. And you didn't see people getting very upset that people might try to climb Notre Dame Cathedral. It's still a religious building. You're still climbing it. It's, there's no logic here. And if you want your, giant boob, giant butt, whatever caricature of Barbie that anime took and ran with. If you want that, okay. That being said, you have to allow for people. It's really not appropriate for Naoe, in part because she's doing moves I can't do. Because if I lie on my stomach, I'm up like you're scraping. There's too much there. It was always a problem for me when I did acrobatics because I do a front walkover and like I had to stop because the extra weight here was putting too much pressure on my back. So I could do like flips based on momentum. But anything that's a slow like walkover, that's a smooth movement, I literally would get stuck coming back up. There was too much weight on my top. It wouldn't make sense. In Stellar Blade, Eve's supposed to be objectified. That's part of the ongoing themes and choices in the game. So, I defend both. And I do think Naoe she's beautiful, but she's beautiful in a damaged way. The scars, it all makes sense. And it actually made me think of the fact that I was really disappointed in the fact that the game version of The Witcher did not include, and I've talked about this before, didn't include Triss's scars. They just totally redid that character. Didn't include Triss's scars, didn't include the Zarakanian mercs, the female mercs who are proud of their scars. Because that, too, is a nod to Polish history where that period of it was Nazis one day, it was the Russians the next. I mean, people are still alive that lived through that. They have their scars that you can see and that you don't see. But, Eastern European attitudes are different for that reason. And there's a reason that everyone is losing their shit about Russian aggression, because Poland only really got rid of that influence, occupation, so to speak, in the 1990s, like literally 2 years before the first Witcher book came out. And I do think that this idea that if something offends you, if you feel like it's not specifically for you, if it makes you feel bad, then it is bad. Well, to me, that's more of the cliche of woke that I understand it. Because it's like, I kind of go the James Lindsay definition because it's the only one that's firm of it's sort of a culturally oppressive, it's not true like progressivism, it's control. And sure, there's gonna be some control. It's an Assassin's Creed game, order versus freedom, right? Like those are the dueling factions every single time. And I've been accused of not liking the game because it was too white. Because I said I wasn't big on the Viking theme. Like, it's just, it was, the show was, and then How to Train Your Dragon, and then, God of War was also Vikings. It was, and it was grindy. Like, I could have gotten past the aesthetic that I was bored of. And that I don't, it's not my idea of Assassin's Creed the same way, like I said, Far Cry in America. I get what they were doing. It wasn't my favorite, right? But this idea that my opinions of Valhalla are somehow rooted in racism, that's pretty woke, right? If we take woke as this idea to sort of coercively control people through accusations of you're sexist or you're racist or you're homophobic, right? I mean, if different subgenders existed in a time, it's fair to include them. But I mean, there was a specific haircut associated with these, well, they were teenage boys that were often prostitutes. But they weren't called that. They were called this other thing. But, it's not gay if it's one of those. And I mean, Bishonen are really defined by being right on the line between masculine and feminine as well. So, you can argue that use of they, them pronouns is probably not historically accurate, but I maintain that was sort of the closest thing. Because if you started getting into the terms, it would deal with the fact that, that trend was sort of, they existed, but it wasn't full blown on the trend when it was very open. And the fact that he's too old now, because by modern standards, it would be a consent issue. You got the feel, his hair is a little bit shorter in the front. So I got the sense that it's grown out since he had the shaved indicator. And that's consistent with the lady with no eyebrows and the smudges too, right? Like it's history. It's there. If it's historical, it's not woke to include it. You can contextualize it in a modern way to make people go, okay, help me understand what's going on here. But that's not woke. That's history. And, I didn't like how they changed Triss from the books. Did I still play the game? Sure. I was really down on The Witcher 2. There were a lot of things I love The Witcher 3. And I love when they finally introduced Yennefer, what they did with her. And Yennefer is an example of a character where she doesn't have, like, her boobs. Like, Yennefer is modestly endowed. And she covers up. She wears pants. She's not wearing the high fashion of the other sorceresses. That's not The Witcher being woke. That's character. And I wish they'd done more of that in the show. But it makes sense for Yen in that game, in part because she's sort of been on the run for a while, and so pants made sense. But you go back in gaming history, and the number of really, like, women with giant boobs has been, I think, really exaggerated. If you go with Ivy, Armika, Lara Croft, there aren't, the villain in Resident Evil 3? There aren't that many examples. Like, not really. It was never this super common thing. Jill Valentine was not a D-cup. To me, those characters always indicated aggression. And we can say whether that's right or wrong. I mean, your bra size shouldn't be a measure of character. Because I know that the anti-wokes don't care about the impact on women with large breasts in real life. I know you don't care. But, having to deal with those stereotypes that you are just making yourself into a male fantasy to be a pick-me. I mean, I grew these. They're not implants. And my entire adult life, I mean, I had people speculate. I had people adamant that I had implants. And that's so... It's dehumanizing. I'm back to having trouble finding things that fit properly. It is, and it's good that they're bigger, because otherwise I would be so, like, I'm a size 8 on top. I am a size 14 pants. I just went shopping recently again. And it's like these fights over women's bodies in gaming, it's not just about fictional characters. It's about what we consider beautiful as a society. And no one is everyone's cuppa. And I think that this is just a race to the bottom. That if somebody has a different idea of what's attractive, and I say this as somebody who does, right? But as somebody who has a different idea of what's attractive, that shouldn't be seen as freakish or a political agenda. It's just what they like. And I originally said, like, okay, now he seems young. She does seem young. She does seem very immature in places. And it makes it really hard to, like, go, oh, she's hot, right? I mean, she's very physically attractive, but she's clearly young. And she's stunted by trauma. And so they do give her kind of immature teenagery moments of her going to ask it, you like her. And so because she's supposed to be kind of young and vulnerable, it wouldn't be appropriate to sexualize her. And I think that everybody agrees that that's fair. Because this is not a game made for like horny teenage Japanese boys like Senran Kagura is. You know, that game is clearly made for high schoolers who are woo boobies, right? Like, I feel kind of weird playing that game because that is very much like not for me. It's very much in that forget the step up from shonen. And so I think that this entire, and we're going to go back into the fucking Harry Potter fight again. And I mean, even though I enjoyed Vilgard for what it was, messy opening and all, or in spite of the messy opening, I do see people's, like, if all you saw was the Tosh scenes, you'd be like, this game's woke as fuck. It's a skewed view of the game, and the game was badly marketed. But, you know, there's none of that in Shadows. There's no railroading. There's no forcing you to, you know, agree with what a character did or else, you know, and, you know, you can choose to, but you are not forced to murder women armed with only a lantern. And I have always told people that I will not shy away from these things, even though I know I'm going to eat shit. For the people that do appreciate my content and do appreciate my opinions, that's why I make these videos. But the bigger point is, everybody's got to be able to find beautiful what they find beautiful. And as somebody who, you know, has been dismissed as a bimbo and a slut in part because of the way I looked when I was younger, I gotta stand up for women who look the polar opposite of me. And these women's bodies are not an agenda. These women deserve to be included and to be seen as beautiful and something some men are gonna find attractive. Some women are gonna find attractive. I was telling a friend of mine who happens to be a lesbian that, you know, they said Naomi's ugly, and she looked at her, she goes, what do you mean? She's hot. Like, right? Different strokes for different folks, literally on the strokes. And there's no way to affirm one taste or one preference here without saying, like, look, all are valid, There's no politicization here. It's just a different aesthetic. And I do think there's a larger issue here that we do have to take seriously, because I didn't agree with the, if this game is bad and you're bad for liking it, when the left did it or the wokies did it. I'm not going to support it when the anti-woke is pulling a this game is bad and you're bad for liking it. I just oppose that on principle. And again, you're missing out on a really fun game where you can play baseball with a Kanabo bat and people's heads. But enough about me. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching. Please support my content. Please support freedom of speech here. Assassins be assassins. Freedom over order. Just kidding. Thanks for watching.